Okay, calling to order the 9:30 hearing for Governor's Message 502, 566, and 750. This meeting, including the audio and video of remote participants, is being streamed live on YouTube. You will find links to the viewing options for all Senate meetings on the live and on-demand video page of the legislature's website. In the event we have to end this hearing, the committee will reconvene to discuss any outstanding business on Friday, April 16, 9:30 a.m. in this room. A public notice will be posted. For those testifying remotely, you will be muted and video will be disabled shortly until it's your turn to testify. We'll be enforcing a 2-minute limit on verbal testimony. If there are any glitches during your testimony or while you are testifying, we will move on to the next person due to time constraints and remind you that the committee has your written testimony. We apologize if the closed captioning doesn't accurately and transcribes the names. If you're interested in reviewing the written testimony, please go to our website. Okay, let's start with Governor's Message 502. So we will hear from DLNR.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, DLNR, Suzanne Case, DLNR. We stand in honor of written testimony in strong support of Mr. Choi's nomination. Thank you.
Thank you. Department of Transportation.
Good morning, Chair De La Cruz, Vice Chair Kita Garan, and distinguished members of the Ways and Means Committee. On behalf of DOT, Jay Putai, we stand on our testimony in strong support. Let's face it, no one loves paying taxes, but it is our honor to be here and strongly recommend the confirmation of Mr. Isaac Choi. Thank you.
Okay, and later on, Jade, I gotta talk to you about your budget.
Okay.
Okay, Department of Agriculture.
Aloha and good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Phyllis Shimabukuro Geyser on behalf of the department. We stand on our written testimony strongly supporting Mr. Choi. He has been very helpful to us, during the months that he's been nominated. Thank you.
Thank you. D-Herd.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Record Water from the Department of Human Resources Development, and we will stand on our testimony in strong support of Director Choi. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Office of the Governor.
Thank you, Chair. Linda Chu Takayama, speaking in support of Governor David Ige, standing in strong support of the nominee for Director of the Department of Taxation, and we'll stand on our written testimony. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Those are all the registered testifiers. So now we can hear from the nominee.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, am I going to be limited to two minutes?
No, I'd be surprised if you have something more to say than that.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, committee, for considering my nomination for this particular office. I'd like to begin by thanking the governor for giving me this particular opportunity to go back into public service. I want to assure the committee that I asked the governor for this particular position. I thought I could do it. I thought I could do it well. And he did favor me by nominating me to this position. So if I don't work out, don't blame the governor. It was all me that I asked. And I did peek into the written testimonies that were sent on my behalf. And I must say that I am humbled. I am very humbled that so much of my colleagues that I worked with, played with, fought with, traveled with for the last 3-4 decades bestowed such great accolades about me and said such kind words it was very, very heartwarming. Of course, I'll tell my colleagues right now, no, I'm not extending the deadline, no matter how kind your words were. But I am very, very humbled. And Chair, I like to take this opportunity, not to talk about me so much, but to talk about my department. DOTAX is probably the most misunderstood department in the entire state. We're the revenue generating arm, and we have great people working here. I see them all the time. I come in on the weekends, and there's lights on in the offices, and because of the budget situation, I can't afford to pay them overtime, but they're so dedicated. They're dedicated to helping the state achieve its mission and its goals, to do their jobs properly. I am just totally impressed with the department. And of course, you folks all know that, I have no government service beside the legislature. And when I did move in here on August the 10th, everybody in my department knew that I was the rookie director with no government experience, and he didn't know what he was doing. And it's how they embrace me, and how they try to nurture me and help me along, I've testified before that I probably made 1,000 mistakes, and yet these guys were just hanging in there, being super nice to me. So I just want to thank the people of the department. The other thing is, everybody wants to know what my vision for the tax office is. With such great people, and of course the great computer system that you guys did afford us. One of my initiatives was I'm trying to make a one office concept, and this is probably going to work pretty well because of the technology that you afforded us. That it's very, very difficult to hire into the Department of Taxation, because it's not something that you can just get somebody off the street and just become a tax department employee. They need to be trained, they need to be experienced. And so, to spread the manao of everybody among all the islands is one of my visions, to make this a one office concept where a person from Oahu can be helping or auditing a person from Maui, and a person from Maui can be auditing and helping a taxpayer from a big island, and just make this a one big office. That is a big initiative of mine, and I think we're moving forward. Also, my other vision is the tax department has been playing defense for a long time as I walked into this place. And of course, you folks know I'm an offensive guy. So basically, I want to play offense and make sure that the tax laws of the state of Hawaii is fairly administered, aggressively administered. I really believe in tax fairness. Basically, I always tell people, if Isaac Choi got to pay, everybody's got to pay. And so, we want to be playing offense, and hopefully that's going to reflect in the budget that you may give me.
Yeah, I think I remember when I was negotiating with you on a bill. I think I remember you saying, if my bill has to die, then all bills have to die. Similar to how you approach taxing. So
fair is fair, Chair. Fair is fair. And of course, we do have challenges in the department, but let me just share with you again. I think one of the challenges in the department is sustainability. Like all state departments, my department has a lot of tenured employees that's been here for a long time, and they have a lot of manao to share with younger people, and we need to keep these new people keep coming into the system and learning from the kupunas in our department, because they do have a lot of historical knowledge. And so things like hiring freezes and funding cuts becomes a challenge for sustainability. The other thing, which I think is a big challenge to our department, is training, and that's something, Chair, I can bring to the table. I've been lecturing your compliance department here, and other departments that I have experience in on more modern compliance techniques and things that would help with the enforcement of our taxes. So those are just a little snippet of the department. We work every day, and Chair, I want to assure you, every dollar you spend with us is well spent, especially with the people of this I would say great department. And I'd like to just end by answering a question I know is burning in all your hearts. The question is, why did I not extend the filing deadline? In fact, I've been told I may be the only state in the union that has not. And I always like being number one, so I guess that's a good thing if you look at it that way. But I want you guys to fully realize that this kind of decision, whether to extend deadlines or not extend deadlines, is very well thought out. It is to extend the deadline is not a flip of a switch. You can't just flip a switch and all of a sudden you extend the deadline and you turn it off and it's okay. It has to do with form changes, instruction changes, statute of limitations, penalties, interest, and then of course, hard programming. My programmer guy, it's one of my main decisions, my programmer guy tells me it's gonna take 2 weeks and the projects that were ongoing is gonna be pushed back 2 months. And I'm thinking, what are you guys talking about? And Chair, you know that most likely these tasks are going to be done by outside contractors. In my pocket mind, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is about $100,000. Is the extension of deadlines worth it for all this disruption it would cause? And also, it's the way the Internal Revenue Service extended their deadline. Unfortunately, I'm a practitioner, so I do read their notices carefully, and I don't know if you guys picked up the nuance, but they extended the deadline to May 17, but they did not extend the first quarter estimate payment, and that's still due on April 15th, and I'm going, wait a minute, you gotta have some 2020 figures before you can do the first quarter estimates, and yet they didn't. So although I know the Internal Revenue Service came out and said, oh, we're doing this for the people and all this, let's face it, they extended the deadline because Congress came about and made major law changes, primarily conforming to the UI and conforming to the PPP, right? And then the Internal Revenue Service came out and said, hey, for all you 50%, because by the time May 17th came out and they extended the deadline, March 17th came out and they extended the deadline, over 50% of the taxpayer already filed. So the Internal Revenue Service had to reprogram their computers to try to automatically get refunds for these people. They actually, it was an internal process that they needed, right? And in fact, so they did this hastily. Oh, I'm going to extend the deadline to May 17th. And now the ramifications, as I said on yesterday's Bloomberg tax law came out and said, hey, the Internal Revenue Service, all they did was extend the filing deadline, but look at all these, what about estimated tax payments? What about the corporate tax? What about the partnerships? What about the fiduciary? What about the estate tax? All this kind of stuff, they didn't address. So little by little, it's coming out that this extension of deadline is not a flip of the switch. It takes a lot of thought, and it's something that we caught early on. So, in fact, Congress right now is, I think they just caught on, and there was an article in Bloomberg yesterday again that said Congress is asking the Internal Revenue Service to extend the first quarter 2021 filing, which specifically was excluded in the extension deadline. So my decision tree, I think, is very, very sound. I did check automatically. I checked with the rules office for penalties and interest. I checked with practitioners to make sure that their software could handle a different filing date. Could they file the state return by themselves? There was also a consideration of a vehicle available to all Hawaii taxpayers called an automatic 6-month extension. As you folks know, when you extend your federal tax returns, you have to actually file a form. In Hawaii, you don't gotta file a form. It's automatic, easy peasy, right? As long as you meet the filing requirements, the payment requirements that you're supposed to have done anyway by January 20th, right? Easy peasy, no penalties and interest, walking away. So for, we have, and I testified about this before, we have good taxpayers and naughty taxpayers. For good taxpayers, the extension is automatic, no problem, easy peasy. For those, they could get a 6-month extension with doing nothing, and that's absolutely right, doing nothing. And yet the more naughty taxpayers who did not withhold on their unemployment or underestimate their payments, tax payments, well, they have an opportunity by April 20th to put that amount, that difference in. And I double checked that. That's easy peasy. You go right online, you can pay it with a credit card, but of course you have to pay a little fee. I think it's about 2%. And then, but if you pay with your check, it's free. It's free. So that's easy peasy. So I did check all of these different factors, and I think, and you folks, from a policy perspective, I send you guys the monthly revenue or figures every single year. But when you read the bottom paragraph, right, there was a distortion in revenue because last year you guys extended out the deadline. Remember that little thing that we had on the bottom of the revenue estimates every single year. That distortion is causing major headaches this year from a policy standpoint, trying to figure out, well, what exactly is this year's revenue and how much was carried over from last year. So I guess the message here, and to the practitioners and to the general public, is, extending deadlines is not a flip of a switch. There's a lot that goes on behind that, right? And so with no tax law changes, people can easily just look at their last year's return, compare the numbers, they'll line up. If they made more or paid less, put it in on the I think it's called 200V form. Well, it's online anyway. Pay online, and you're done all the way till October. So those are the reasons why I did not extend the deadline. I think if the decision is sound, and I think the decision will be, we can, the decisions we make, Chair. We know only history will tell.
So thank you for your very extensive explanation, and thank you for keeping within the 2 minutes.
But okay, Chair, I rest, I stand on my testimony, and hopefully the questions you ask me are very, very easy ones.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so I just wanted to ask you a couple questions on the questionnaire that was sent. And one of the things you had talked about was the opportunity to consolidate the Tax Compliance and Administration Office, which I'm not opposed to. I just wanted to figure out from you, what's your timeline on that?
Nothing happens overnight. The specific timeline is probably a year.
Okay, so by next session, you'll have a reorg plan for us, and it'll be submitted in your budget.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chair, I also agree with your the way you handle my computer budget. I do agree with you. Chair, if I can't give you satisfaction by next budget, time to fire me, I guess.
Okay, well, you can thank Senator Moriwaki for her assistance in crafting and
know.
making those decisions.
She's incredible. Thank you.
The other thing, you had talked a lot about training, building capacity, recruiting. Do you have anything specific on how you're going to approach that, a timeline, what kind of resources you're going to need? Is DHERD on board? What's your plan?
I did not check with DHERD, but I do have a plan. And for me, I want to hire the bottom level, not the top managers level or the expert. I want to get the kids out of UH. I want to train them to be tax administrators. And the timeline, Chair, I have started already. I've hired a biology major to work temporarily in our special investigations branch. I felt a science major had journaling skills and could read standards. And so I'm experimenting to see if I can get non-accounting, non-business majors to be a part of our investigative crew, our audit crew. I can teach them, I can personally teach them how to read taxes and audit. I just need their basic skills, such as if I pick up science students, right? I think their journaling skills, their observation skills, and of course their reading comprehension would be really good. So I have started an experiment.
So you're in conversations with the university and the community college as to how you can create that pipeline?
I have not began those conversations yet. I just brought these people in and just went right to work.
Okay, so hopefully you can get that going by end of summer.
Okay, I haven't even thought of reaching out to them, but I will now.
Okay, one of the most important or most expensive questions is probably the tax modernization system. And I think we've had some conversations already about ensuring that you build capacity within your department so that we don't have to keep outsourcing and costing the state millions of dollars. So what are your thoughts and how do you plan to address this?
Yeah, so again, building capacity, right? I do have a very extensive plan that I told you I would share with you this summer after the session. And I will
you know what? You look in the mirror and you tell your deputy to write it all down and, and submit it to the Ways and Means Committee.
Okay, yeah, my deputy is a very handsome guy, so I know he can get it done. But Chair, as I promised you, I do have a plan, and I will share it with you and Senator Moriwaki.
And if they don't give it to you by the end of summer, you need to fire them.
Absolutely, I'll fire the guy in the mirror.
Okay, members, any questions?
I have a question.
Senator Noor.
Yes, not to belay this, but one of your accomplishments that you'd like to see during your term is the backlogs. Now, can I ask you, are the backlogs, the majority of them are due to appeals? And if not as well, what's the value of the backlogs?
Okay, so if you're talking about compliance values, I don't have that. But if you're talking about accounts receivable, monies that are owed us, okay, that's $1.1 billion and climbing. And I did ask, in fact, my first ask, my number one priority ask was for 5 more collectors. And, the collection business is a people business. I need bodies. And for some reason, the Oahu collection sections is short 16 people, and overall in the state, we're short over 30 people. And again, you don't hire somebody off the street and all of a sudden they're collectors, right? Now, I do have an idea, and I totally understand the budget situation, and I know it's hard, I understand that. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to form this rapid deployment team. So, and actually I already formed it, but to go to the areas that's falling down, and these are very good people, and they can actually pinch hit for them until we have a better financial situation in the state and we can make permanent changes. But I do have this little group of people that I can move around whatever department is falling down. And of course, these are very highly trained people and very, right? And they can make up that particular difference.
How are the appeals?
As far as taxpayer appeals, who are my appellate officer, who is another one-man show. She doesn't even have a secretary. Okay, she is closing more appeals than I've ever seen in my life. It's moving along very nicely, Senator.
Okay, so you don't contract any of those services, backlog or the appeals on a contract base? It's all internal?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the compliance issue has to be done internally.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Senator Moriwaki? Yeah. Senator Moriwaki.
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, Director, I've been on the job for 8 months, and I see, you know, that you're really looking at reorganizing, getting the administration part of it. But I saw one thing, your testimony, that you have numeric markers to gauge your progress in terms of reaching your mission. Can you just briefly just say what one or two of your missions are for the department and what the numeric markers are, and if we can ask your deputy to also send us a copy of that?
Okay, so Senator, my markers are actually a part of my budget testimony. This particular department is money oriented, money and cases. And we track, as far as markers are concerned, when you say, hey, if I give you another a collector, another auditor, how much money are you gonna make me? Everything is tracked monetarily and by case. So those are the markers, and we can tell you, like I can tell you, if you spend $1 with me, I'm gonna return $10. How do I know that? Because I got a computer report every single month, right? That shows me per person how much they bring in, how many cases they close.
But your mission is for uniform, transparent, fair tax laws. So. And the administration of tax laws. So what is that mission in terms of your little trackers, in terms of bringing money in? Is that your gauge? What is the metric?
Thank you for that question, Senator. As soon as I came in, I changed the mission statement. And my mission statement is very, very simple now, and it will be under my administration. My job is to protect the revenues of the state of Hawaii. So my job is to protect the revenues of the state of Hawaii. That's my job. And that's the mission of my department.
Can I just ask one more question in terms of tax laws and the equity and so forth? And maybe even changing laws that might be archaic, I don't know. The Tax Review Commission, you were the chair of that. How does that play in, or how do you ensure that the Tax Review Commission does look at laws, tax laws, to protect the revenues of the state? What is your role in the Tax Review Commission and what it's doing? Because I know they're in process now.
Right. So actually, the specific charge of the Tax Review Commission is to ensure the adequacy of taxes with the tax system that we have. So, and using concepts like fairness and equity, right? But the main focus of the Tax Review Commission is to look at the system of taxes as you folks promulgate right this very second, and to see if it's adequate to fund the services of the state of Hawaii. And I know they're doing that, and you know, guys, as far as tax laws are concerned, you guys are doing a great job, especially the WAM community, because I looked at the tax laws that you guys passed in the last couple of years. Very avant-garde, very progressive. I think they're excellent. My job is to take the laws that you folks pass and to administer them. And you know, I take that pretty seriously.
Thank you, Chair.
So Isaac, I wanted to talk about the backlog. You had said 1.5 billion. What's your timeline on trying to get those numbers into the state coffers?
Okay, so I'm short people right now, and what I'm doing is I'm going to try to, my rapid deployment force, I'm going to try to redeploy people from other divisions on a temporary basis and try to get them up into collections and to help out. But Chair, remember, they got to be trained now. You know, you just don't become a collector overnight.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So what's your timeline?
Yeah, so I suspect, again, maybe, you know, by the end of my term or a year, we should see a marked improvement. So by the time the biennium budget comes out, yeah, I'll give you a report.
Yeah, but that's when you're out. So if you don't finish.
How did you know my secret?
I conference with you, Isaac.
No, but you will see marked improvements. And, oh, by the way, Chair, just please give me a tax collector, okay? Fund my tax collector position.
So but if what is your plan? You're trying to get at least this 1.5 million down by half within a year, or?
I don't think half. I think that's too aggressive, but I think we would get at least 10 or 20% down. You know, the whole trick in collections is to make sure that it doesn't get old. You gotta be Johnny on the spot in collection. I guess, I mean, all
Okay, so 30% by what date you think you can?
Don't stick me with 30, but give me 20% by next year.
Okay, so by January you think 20%?
Yeah, we'll try our best.
Okay. If not, we're gonna move on. I think we've heard a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, next item.
Thank you, Chair.
General Governor's Message 566. I don't think we have anybody signed up to testify. Glenn Sakuda. And last item, Governor's Message 750. Winston Hong.
Good morning, Chairman De La Cruz.
Aloha.
Just wanted to thank you, Chairman De La Cruz, and all distinguished members of the Ways and Means Committee. I've always seen public service as both a privilege and a duty, so I'm grateful for the opportunity to be considered for this nomination. I've already submitted written testimony, which I stand on, and that includes my responses to the boards and commissions questionnaire. But I'll gladly take any questions if you have them for me today.
Okay, members, I think all of you received Mr. Wong's responses to the questionnaire. Did anybody have any questions? I know some of you have spoken to him privately, so I'm not sure if you wanted to reiterate anything, or if those conversations that you've had with him you're already satisfied with those answers. Okay. Okay, thank you. We're going to go into the breakout room. So recess. Okay, reconvening the 9:30 agenda. Okay. So recommendation on Governor's 502, Governor's Message 502 would be to advise and consent. Any discussion? If not, Chair votes aye.
Okay. Chair's recommendation on GM 502 is to advise and consent. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair Agaran?
Aye.
Okay. Senator English?
Aye.
Okay, I vote aye. Senator Kanuha?
Aye.
Okay, Senator Kidani?
Aye.
Senator Moriwaki?
Aye.
Senator Shimabukuro?
Aye.
Senator Taniguchi?
Aye.
Senator Wakai?
Yes.
Senator Favela?
Aye.
Okay, measure is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Governor's Message 566, we're going to defer. Next item, Governor's Message 750, recommendation is to advise and consent. Any discussion?
Chair's recommendation on GM 750 is to advise and consent. There are 11 members present. Are there any noes? Any reservations? Measure is adopted with 11 members present, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So I'm going to adjourn and then reconvene the 10 a.m. Convene the 10 a.m. So we'll adjourn the 9:30 and we'll convene the 10 a.m. Ways and Means decision making. Okay, so as you can see, we deleted a number of measures from the agenda, and the reason is the House is already passing the exact same resolution, except it's the Senate concurrent resolution, and the administration only needs one to pass. So we'll be taking the other remaining 11 items together. So HCR 24, HCR 25, HCR 44, HCR 49, HCR 59, HCR 68, HCR 70, HCR 89, HCR 97, HCR 104, and HCR 166. So we don't have anyone who signed up to verbally testify. So I'm going to go straight into decision making. So Chair's going to recommend on all 11 items that we pass as is. Any discussion? Okay, if not,
Chair's recommendation is to pass the measures recommended by the chair. There are 11 members present. Are any voting with reservations? Any noes? 11 members present, Mr. Chair. Measures are adopted.
thank you. Adjourn.